oldest, and then 3 boys, and the
Oh,
3
yeah,
boys
so
are
just the
getting,
opposite.
No, she never told
Yeah.
me that.
your 2 boys are the
strip
oldest.
Yeah.
the arm or anything like that.
I didn't know that either.
It's fun.
So I rubbed it on my leg.
Chaos and fun.
Got kind of numb. I stripped it down there. Click.
I'm trying to go out the door, and they're like, "Mom, I need this, Mom, I need that."
Try to get that fine
Bye. He'll
No,
figure it
just
out.
an injection going in.
Are you ready?
You're not supposed to put it.
16,
I guess
and
not.
then my youngest just turned 1,
So
so
stumbled
she's
down
kind of
the
our little
stairs.
caboose.
Got to the couch. I mean, I could hardly walk in that night. I just plopped on the couch. And then I got
We'd
sick
like to welcome everyone out to our Planning Commission meeting for Riverdale City, Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. We have Commissioner Chairman Eskelson, who is excused, as also Juan Anai, who is excused. Otherwise, all of the rest of the Planning Commission are present. We'd like to welcome the public here with us today as well. And we would now open up for any public comment, items that you'd like to bring forward before the Planning Commission, aside from the items being addressed in the meeting tonight, if any. Given that no one's anxious to jump up, we'll move forward then. So, let's see, presentation and reports. Mr. Eggett, please.
Thank you. Let's see if I can do this quick. Fizz, there's no change on it. I did fail to note one. The Shopko building is close to having a building permit issued for a home furnishing use there. I'll tell you who very soon, but it's coming. I'll tell you soon. And then I didn't know Cheddar's is a little bit delayed. We thought maybe end of March, but it's feeling probably like end of April. Their builder is having some struggles. We'll just say that. That's the best way I can explain it. But they were working through it. The grand opening for Generator Supercenter we had last week. Appreciate everybody that came. CR Trading Post will have its grand opening Saturday at 7:45 in the morning if you can make it. And no updates on Fizz. And then we have 2 new uses going in at the 700 West corner project, new boutique, smaller store uses. So I think that's everything I said, but if I missed anything, please feel free to ask questions or let me know. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have our consent items. Consideration of meeting minutes from February 28th, work session and regular meeting. Do we have any comments from the commission of any changes or amendments we need to make for that?
I'd make a motion to approve the work session minutes and regular meeting minutes,
Second.
February 28th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
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 Oh, yes. Yes.
We're still getting that one down.
We need a big sign that says yes.
All right, we'll move on now to our action items. First, consideration for a public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding proposed ordinance amendments to Title 10, Chapter 15, Parking, Loading Space, Vehicle Traffic and Access of the Riverdale Municipal Code. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. So recently, if you remember, we had a discussion between myself, the city administrator, and some city staff regarding parking standards for multifamily dwelling projects in the community. It was determined that the standard would be broadly more beneficial to even 2-family, 3-family, multifamily discussions. And there were also items of code that were relative to business uses that needed to be better clarified, specifically drive-through restaurants. As a result, we did a minor review and change of some of the language in the code, and we followed guidance from Saratoga Springs Municipal Code to help us to identify a better kind of a linear distance measurement of 150 feet from the nearest accessible entranceway of each dwelling unit. So that's what you'll see in the packet. We did go ahead and advertise as we're required to per state code, have have not received any public comments relative to the changes that are being proposed to Title 10, Chapter 15 of the City Code. And the city attorney, obviously being Steve Brooks, who's also city administrator, is good with the language that is found in your packet tonight. There's no general plan guidance for the request. And with that, I would defer to the Planning Commission to proceed with the public hearing, and then we can discuss it more after if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? We need to... Okay. All right. So we'll now open the public hearing and welcome anyone who has comments regarding the ordinance amendments to Title 10, Chapter 15, Parking, Loading, Space, Vehicle, Traffic, and Access of the Riverdale Municipal Code. If anyone would care to come forward with comments, would welcome that. Looks like we don't have anyone willing to comment, so
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
all in favor?
Yes.
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 All right, action item 1B, consideration to forward a recommendation to the City Council regarding proposed ordinance amendments to Title 10, Chapter 15, Parking, Loading, Space, Vehicle, Traffic, and Access of the Riverdale Municipal Code. Mr. Agate, do we need further discussion?
Not that I'm aware of. Just obviously with this one, it is a recommendation to City Council, and I would advise a roll call vote at the end when the
Okay,
motion's made.
thank you. Commissioners, do we have any discussion or questions? Then we could take a motion if there's one to be presented.
I'd like to make a motion to forward a recommendation to the City Council regarding proposed ordinance amendments to Title 10, Chapter 15, Parking, Loading, Space, Vehicle, Traffic, and Access of the Riverdale Municipal Code.
Second.
And just to be clear, a favorable recommendation? Is that
Favorable
what you mean?
recommendation, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does the second accept that amendment?
Yes.
All right, Michelle, could we poll the commissioners, please?
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Nolan?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Spires?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes. Voting's been unanimous. Thank you. All right, next action item. Item E2, consideration of recommendation to City Council regarding final subdivision and site plan request for Coleman View Heights, PRUD subdivision, and site plan located at approximately 5368 South, 1050 West, as requested by Goldcrest Homes, RD Development Group. Mr. Agate.
Thank you. And it looks like they're going to go with Coleman View Estates, so I'll change that in future discussions of this subdivision. That being said, Goldcrest Homes is the petitioner. I had RD Development. That needs to say Goldcrest Homes. That's another mistake I made on the executive summary. They're represented tonight by Thaddeum Falls and Adam Anderson, who are present. If you have questions for them as part of this project, this is a final, as you noted, subdivision site plan and plat review. Located at 5368 South, 1050 West. The zoning is R2 zoning, and Goldcrest Homes is now taking over responsibility for the future of the subdivision process. Last time this came before the Planning Commission was back on August 23rd, 2022 for preliminary review, and at the conclusion of that meeting, there was approval of the preliminary subdivision submittal. They're back tonight for that discussion. I also noted in the work session, and we'll note for the record, this has been requested as a PRUD subdivision request. There was a secondary application that came before the Planning Commission on September 13th, wherein a public hearing was held. There were no comments from the public for that public hearing. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning Commission did recommend City Council approval, favorable recommendation to City Council for approval of the PRUD request for the project area. One of the things to note with the PRUD that was requested at that time that does affect the subdivision plat and is part of the discussion tonight is that some of the lots were allowed to be smaller than well, not allowed, that's wrong terminology, have been requested as part of that PRUD to be smaller in size than the 8,000 square foot minimums of the R2 zone. And that is one of the allowances the PRD does provide, are smaller sized lots and reduced setbacks or changes in setbacks. The second component being that the setbacks are being requested to be 5 foot on the side yard as minimums, and that was proposed as part of that PRUD. So that is part of what you'll see in the plat documentation if you haven't noticed that already, which I believe you have because we've talked about that. That being said, the ownership for the property is in Moview LLC and Brett H. and Kimberly A. Coleman Family Trust. The property, as we all know, was an existing drive-in theater property that is no longer functioning, and other agricultural properties that have been there on the property for many years, and also a residential dwelling there next to the property. General plan guidance for this area is subject to Area 8 of the Riverdale General Plan. There's a small paragraph noting that, and the request of residential low density being an alternative use should there not be a synergistic use with the golf course be explored. This does match that general plan use, so there is a linkage there that matches in our general plan. Going over the review comments, I'll review each department and then we can go from there. I did note on the property information ownership, the ownership is still per county records Moview LLC, and that does need to be identified somewhere on the drawings, preferably the cover page, but it does need to be identified. Street names, we have one issue. I have brought this up historically with RD development, and I thought we had it corrected, but it's come back and shown itself again with these drawings. Universal Street has both a northwest and an east, or north-south and an east-west. Can't have that. It's too hard for addressing to work properly and for coordinates with emergency services. So we need two road names and coordinate systems there. So we'll just need to split it is basically what I'm referencing there. On landscaping, there was a previous landscaping plan provided. I assume it's still the same landscaping plan for the most part, but if it needs to be updated, please make sure you send that to me into future revision. And then also Stam Concrete just needs to be called out along 1050 West and South Weber Drive. It looks like it, but it just needs to be called out somehow, either in landscaping plan or in future drawings for that. Let's see. And then obviously irrigation plans with landscaping. Under location setbacks and all dimensions on page 5, I just say please show some typical lot setbacks in the subdivision. We typically do see those. If you have a lot configuration that's pretty typical, or 2 or 3, it's good to see an example of that somewhere in the drawing so we know what those setbacks look and how they'll be applied. Again, landscaping, same on page 6. Page 7, no cross-section shown regarding the sidewalk and ensure the sidewalk standard depth and approach depth meeting those standards of the city. It's referenced in wording, but a lot of times we'll see a cross-section showing that cutaway just so it's really clear. There's some fire hydrant comments which I'll get to in a minute. We don't have anything regarding gas lines, electrical lines, telephone lines, or cable TV lines, size and type location of the project. Sometimes even when developers aren't quite sure of existing, obviously new is harder, but we like to at least see the existing locations and those sizing if it's identifiable. And then some kind of a note that says those dry utilities will be connected for each of the lot as the subdivision develops. Usually in the note section in the corner, we'll see something that articulates that for those notes. And then that would make my comments clear there on those 4. Cross-section of curb and gutter, same thing. We usually see a cutaway for the curb and gutter cross-section, and there isn't that I could see any there. On the gutter inlet boxes, there's usually a note that will say bicycle safe grates. We just need a note that references that on that box drawing. Clean out box, I didn't necessarily see anything identifying clean out box. Maybe I missed it. It could be in there. I just didn't see it. And then the thrust block, if there are thrust blocks, which sometimes there are where you have intersections, I didn't see any thrust blocking diagrams. So, and then water rights, they're fully aware of that. That's part of the development agreement. That is a clause that we've been refining with the group, with Goldcrest now taking over and with a new standard being in place with Weber Basin. So we think we have some language that articulates what needs to be said there. But I'm just noting that obviously will need to be provided and proof of that. So those are my comments. Mr. Douglas has quite a few. It's very obviously engineering centric, so I'll try not to get into the nitty-gritty of it. I think the development group can understand what the issues are and work through that with their developer or their engineering team. But Just some items regarding the drainage system and maintenance plan and the BMPs being recorded with the plat, which they're aware of. Some of the ways that the detention retention structures operate and the liners and those sorts of things. Hydraulic separator efficiency and plan detail. Stormwater prevention plan. He looks like three comments regarding that. Oh no, a couple of comments, but regarding that, make sure that that's a little more clear, and then making sure they file correctly with Compliance Go, and the notice of intent filed with state. Letter with canal company, approval of design and plans for bench canal work, pipe material and size, and then verify if the canal requires 10 or 20-foot easement, and show detail for location, design, and well blow off. Streets, he has street names and sign locations shown on plans, which I think he's talking about street name signs, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think that's what he's trying to get at, is making sure that street name signs are clearly identified in the plans. Street signs including stop and yield as well, and speed limit signs shown where they're required. Underwater meter box design per standards. All water needs to be connected before hydrant valve and cul-de-sacs. Standard residential water meter sizes are 3 3¼ inches. Our standard residential water meters are 3/4 inch, are 1 inch required for this development. I think that's what he's saying. All T's require 3 valves as shown in the city specs. Backflow preventer, proposed irrigation sprinkler system plan, a blow off for phase 1 watering, and what water shares. So there you go. There's his comments. Sewer, proposed sewer flows daily and peak, including peak demand time. Show existing sewer mains and laterals. Abandoned sewer lines need to be capped at the property line. And then a concern which they're aware of with the amount of pipe being laid at a 0.5% declination. They have a strict standard for pipe bellies and deviations. He's concerned that very slight slant, it's not very aggressive, may lead to some sewer issues. Again, something they're aware of. It's been an issue from the very beginning of this project. We'll see how that's navigated, but that is not a new concern, I guess, is what the Planning Commission should be aware of. Will it flow? I mean, it meets our standards, but he's concerned that it's going to be very, very flat. This is, per Sean's comments, the flattest property in Riverdale. It's kind of a unique issue. You don't find a flat property very often in a city, so this is an overly flat property, ironically, which is kind of unique. Some notes that he wants to see in the drawings regarding any improvements that need to be replaced. A fence that doesn't allow access will need to be installed on rear yards on 1050 West South Weber. They do have a fence all the way around, but he wants to see the fence design and materials to know what it is. If it's, I believe it's vinyl. I think it's called out somewhere, but anyway, if it's not clear, maybe a little more clear. Note indicating the infrastructure is installed according to Riverdale City standards. Provide locations for the community mailboxes and include a response letter indicating where comments were addressed in the future. The police chief has no concerns. The fire inspector just noted 2 concerns. He would prefer he expects hydrants to be installed at the entrance of the cul-de-sac. He's afraid when they're down at the end that they settle and they become problematic without appropriate flows. And then a timing of the installation comment there regarding fire apparatus access using fire code, which again, I'm sure that you can read that and they can understand what that means. Those are his comments. Moving on finally to the city engineer. He's got some comments regarding UDOT and access from UDOT. I believe we have a variance letter. I didn't send it to him again, so I can certainly provide that to him again to make it clear that UDOT has provided that variance letter for access. I think he's probably just forgotten because of the timing of it. So I can provide that to him and see if that clears that comment on his behalf. Open spaces platted need to have maintenance plans provided to ensure they don't become open nuisance lots. And then need stormwater maintenance plan, which again, the maintenance plan is probably obviously part of CCNR. So again, if I shared with him the CCNR document, that might clear that up for him regarding that comment. On the plat, there's some quick plat comments. Bearing on the drawings from the section corner of the point of the beginning does not match. The bearing called out in the boundary description for all 3 phases, and the irrigation easement description needs to be shown on the plat map. Okay, moving on to improvement drawings. He's got under demolition plan, approach to the existing home should be removed. Under site plan, curb gutter and sidewalk adjacent roundabout needs to be connected to existing improvements unless roundabout is under construction. Grading and drainage plan, because the detention basin has the potential to be over 30 inches deep with water, it must be fenced. Perform a stormwater maintenance schedule and maintenance plan Temporary detention basins need to have emergency spillway identified to ensure no flooding on adjacent properties. And if you notice what he's talking about there is each phase has a detention basin noted as a temporary location that will slowly move until it gets to that third phase. Utility plan, residential service connection needs to be relocated to the 8-inch water line on the opposite side of the fire hydrant valve. Irrigation pipe and structures need to be detailed. Erosion control plan needs to be updated to reflect the multiple phase projection for the site. The vehicle washdown stabilized construction entrances need to be identified for the different phases. Moving on to sheet C600 details. Details for the hydrodynamic separators need to be added to the plans. And details for manholes, boxes, water lines, water meters need to be included as part of the improvement drawings. Finally, PP0 to PP9 sheet should be updated with the information contained on other pages as they are updated. And then the engineer's cost estimate, they did provide us with one of those, which is very helpful at this point. He finds that with the engineer cost estimate, the irrigation piping and structures need to be included. There's 4 handicap ramps that are missing in that projection, and sewer and water service, missing 7 storm drain manholes. There's missing water line tees and bends, and road base and trench fill need to all be included on that engineer's cost estimate update. So with that, I know there's quite a few comments, but those are all the comments from staff and engineering. You'll see the application is in the packet. Fees have been paid for it per the previous. There's a letter of intent to move forward with the engineer's cost estimate and produce a security financing via bond for the project as noted with their letter of intent. Engineer's cost estimate document found thereafter. There's some imagery of the signage for the subdivision entrance and the park that are similar in look and design. And then you'll see per the PRUD, there's a requirement that 40% of the exterior be brick or stone. You'll see 2 versions of concepts that are looking at. One shows a 68.12% coverage. The other shows a 43.58% coverage. So that's indicative of what they're doing. Then you'll see some elevation renderings of what they're going to look to do. Oh, there's a UDOT variance request there. Again, Mr. Freeman just wasn't provided it, but I did include it in the packet for the Planning Commission. He has been provided in the past. He just probably didn't remember or didn't dig it up from the last review. You'll see that I've added the landscaping plan from the previous review, and then the drawings are found thereafter. So with that, all that information, I would defer to the Planning Commission for any comments or questions you may have, or any items relative to the PRUD requirements for a subdivision, and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. We would invite representatives from Goldcrest Homes to come forward that we could ask questions from the commissioners. If you could identify yourself and your city of residence, please.
I'd love to do so. Planning Commission, my name is Thaddeum Falls. I'm excited to be here before you tonight and talk about this project. I'm coming from Orem. Our business is located in Sandy, Utah. Like I mentioned, we're representing Goldcrest Homes, and I'd like to just add in that we're excited to help push this project through, not only for Riverdale City's benefit, but also the Colemans. They've been a pleasure to work with. We've had a limited amount of time to know them, but we know this is a big deal to them, and it's a big deal to the city, letting go of a monumental piece of land and activity, but it's something that he believes is time for, and he's ready to take those steps. So we're excited to answer any questions that you guys may have. A little bit of background on Goldcrest Homes before we proceed. We have 2 years operating as a production home building company. We've been able to build over 80 housing units, and in that matter of time, we've been able to participate in the Parade of Homes, winning 3 awards for Best Craftsmanship, Best Interior Design, and Best Curbside Appeal. That same design team that has won those awards has been elected and is overseeing the future build out of this subdivision. So we're looking forward to bringing a product to Riverdale that hasn't previously been seen, but will have a great impact on the city. So with that said, please take into consideration that we were able to review these comments last night. And since then, me and my partner, Adam Anderson, we have been working all day on these comments, hand in hand with our engineers and with other developers that have previously represented this project. So some of these items are new to us, but regardless, we're excited to address them and to get this thing pushed forward. So without any further ado, any questions you have, I'm excited to answer.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions?
You have a question about the lot size?
Of course.
The zoning requires 8,000 square feet on these. There's a number of them that are under. What's the reasoning behind that?
So as Mike Eggett was able to kind of clarify earlier, this is a very unique piece of ground, very flat and pretty tucked away in a nice little corner there. The reasoning for that is we were wanting to optimize the land at its best use. Our average lot size is falling just shy of 8,000 square feet, coming in at 7,990 something. So just to be able to ensure the cleanest looking product and to bring something that Riverdale City could stand behind proudly, we reconfigured it to the best of our abilities to reach that 8,000 square foot requirement. However, in certain areas we did exceed that, some lots reaching up to 14,000 square feet, some 12s, some 10s. So we're trying to provide something that's not as cookie cutter as you would see in a first time residential subdivision for a first time home buyer. We're looking to provide some type of residential housing that would invite permanent residents to the city of Riverdale. A subdivision that'll invite, I guess that nice extra renovated and modern lifestyle that somebody could be looking for. So.
What do they do on that? Did they give them a variance on that, or?
That's where the PRUD tool comes in. The PRUD tool does give variation to lot sizes as well as setbacks if it's approved by the city council. But that's where the trade-off is, that you get a higher quality exterior for homes and you get amenities that become part of those CCNRs that are of a product that benefits the HOA itself.
Good, thanks.
Of course. Any other questions that I can answer?
Yes,
Perfect.
I've got a few.
Deal.
So, once approval, when do you envision starting on this, and how long do you think it will take? Phase 1, 2, 3. What's your expectation with
Yeah,
that?
that's a super good question. We're anticipating approval as long as everything goes well here tonight and with the city council within the upcoming weeks. We'd like to begin improvements immediately. We'd like to break ground simultaneously with improvement, or with our improvements, while being able to meet the international fire code standards that the fire department has brought up, ensuring that fire hydrants are installed where they need to be. But we're looking to be able to break ground within probably 3 months of approval. We'll be anticipating a relatively quick build out time for phase 1. We're looking to be able to build out 3 to 4 homes a month is our anticipated start time. And then we'll probably be in phase 1, probably about a 5-month build time for each home. So we're looking at about, I'd say, a year for phase 1, just shy, maybe in that ballpark of 10 months to a year. And then after that, as soon as we can, break into phase 2, phase 3. We're anticipating around a 2.5 year build time, maybe more, maybe less, depending on how smoothly the project goes.
Okay. I noticed that it's got a 6-foot fence around the perimeter and most of the open spaces. There was one spot that I noticed it didn't have it identified between lots 304 and 302 and 303. That's where the park, the picnic park is.
Okay.
I'm assuming that that's probably just an oversight, and that would also be something that you would provide to those specific lots.
It's shown on the site plan drawing, so maybe on the drawing that you looked at, it was missed.
didn't. Okay.
Maybe you
Maybe
looked
I
at a
missed
different
that.
drawing, and so I would say maybe that's just a quality assurance check from your engineers to see if it's on all drawings.
Yeah.
Because it's shown on the site plan along that open space property.
Okay,
So
maybe the one that I looked
maybe,
at.
yeah, maybe that's it. I don't know.
Okay, and then I noticed that there was a large parcel. Is that a detention basin that's to the right as you enter off of South Weber Drive?
You'll have to give me 2 seconds to pull up the plat, but if Adam would like to answer that really quickly, he may.
Adam Anderson, Goldcrest Homes, also in Sandy. That piece you're looking at is Brent Coleman's. They're gonna retain that. That's his home.
I was
Okay,
just
so
gonna
that's
ask.
his
That'll be
home.
their site, yes.
All
They'll
right,
stay
all
there.
right. Thank you for that clarification. One thing that I did notice here that we may, is it okay to bring this up?
You should bring it up. It's an oversight by me, but it's definitely pertinent.
Something that I picked up on, you've got your page L101 has the amenities that are going to be added, and I don't know what the specific definition, and we've asked Mr. Eggett to look into this, but according to the PRUD code, says that the amenities need to be completed with phase 1, and that's back in phase 3. And so, just for notification to you, I think that that's something that's going to have to be addressed and looked at as to when and how that's implemented, because that currently exists as part of code, and whether the pickleball courts, the park, the dog park are considered amenities. But that's something that we're going to have to explore.
And I did even since that discussion in the work session and now, because I didn't even realize it was there, and then it was brought to my attention. I thought about 2 ways that maybe we could figure this out. Maybe redoing how phase 1 is drawn and including the lots up that, I guess it would be the southern perimeter, and maybe somehow get a road just so you can get up to those amenities and get them in. Maybe that's a way. So yeah, phase 1 is going to be bigger, and I know that's probably not what Gerald wanted, but it might be the only approach to meet the requirements of code to do that. So those amenities get in right with that first phase, and we get the homes kind of between them. There may be also, I'll have to find out if this is even possible. I can't promise this, but maybe somehow articulated in the development agreement that will hold you accountable to make sure those improvements are done. But that does go against code, so we have to make sure we're still good with state code with that development agreement alternative. But if we're not, then I think the best option would be maybe make phase 1 bigger, so that we can get those amenities somehow improved as part of phase 1.
We appreciate those suggestions, and we're willing and ready to explore any and all options that the city would like to explore. So thank you for that.
And the elevation plans that I saw, that they look great. They look really nice. But I'm assuming that based on those designs, that these are homes that will have basements, all of them, or will there be any that'll be slab homes?
We anticipate the vast majority, I would say in excess of 90% being basements.
Okay.
And we finish all our basements. They're all 9-foot basements. There are some sites that we talked with Sean about, we may have some issues with basements. And looking at the site being as flat it is, we need to put a lot of import fill in the back side. We might have some issues with sewer on that back corner, kind of back by that the golf course in the far back next to 84. That might be an issue for us, and so we might end up doing slab on grade on some of those. We don't know yet until they get our engineer on all those. They've designed all of phase 1, and you see the elevations there. They'll work around to phase 3, what that might look like. We'll put in basements wherever we can, but that's our hope, is to get as many basements as we can.
And I'm sorry, did you say you finished all the basements as well?
We do.
Okay.
We finish 100% of our basements, and we love them. They're all high too. They're 9-foot ceilings, so it feels like you're looking outside. It doesn't feel like you're in a basement when you're in one of our homes. So we appreciate that. We like the design on ours.
Will they have
Daylight basement?
entrance, basement entrances? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All of them?
Walkouts?
Walkouts, yeah.
I don't know that we'll have walkouts in all of them. Some of them will have walkouts.
Okay.
And we do build ADUs. We're not sure that what contingency of ADUs will be on this project. We'll have to see what the market kind of brings. And each city seems to be a little bit different on what the market wants for ADUs, as far as what people are wanting to buy, and do they see that as an amenity, as something they want to see in their homes. But it's certainly something we build. In fact, our Prada Homes had an ADU on it. Beautiful. It's gorgeous. And so we're certainly able to bring that here. And if the market drives it, we'll bring it. So we're excited for it.
Okay.
I think that's essential. The ADUs are essential for affordable housing.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great option. And so I'd like to see more of them.
Any other questions, commissioners? If none, we
go back. I would make a motion for a favorable consideration, a recommendation to the city council with the staff, what the staff needs and the recommendations that have been brought up to be done, to forward it to the city council regarding final subdivision and site plan request for Coleman View Heights PRUD subdivision and site plan located at approximately 5368 South, 1050 West, as requested by Goldcrest Homes RD Development Group.
So just to clarify, what you're basically stating is that it wouldn't be able to or need to come to the city council until all those issues have been resolved
Correct.
satisfactory by staff, and also addressing comments brought by the planning commission
Correct.
this evening. Okay.
Yes. Is that, do you guys feel good with that?
I second.
Okay. Michelle,
Any discussion?
any discussion on the motion?
Okay, if not, then you can do a roll call.
Okay, Michelle, would you poll the commissioners, please?
Commissioner Sparks?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes?
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Nolan?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time. You guys have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have action item E3, consideration of recommendation to City Council regarding final site plan request for Crossroads Center at Riverdale site plan located at approximately 4850 South, 1500 West, as requested by Riverdale Commercial Holdings LLC. Mr. Agate, please.
Thank you. So on the executive summary, I wasn't quite sure who would show up from Riverdale Commercial Holdings, but we have Alex Nord tonight with us, and then Jake Tate is representing AWA's interest in the project. So if you have any questions for them, they'll be here tonight for that. The properties are in the regional commercial C3 zone. As you know, three of the previous properties were once occupied by residential home lots. Those homes are no longer there. Of course, it's getting ready for future development opportunities by Riverdale Commercial Holding. The last time this came before the Planning Commission was back on November 9th, 2021 for preliminary site plan, so it's been a little while. As noted in the work session, and I'll note it for those who may be listening or watching online, there was quite a bit of back and forth throughout the year 2022 and working through the participation agreement, the development agreements for this project. And we finally got to a point where both of those agreements were hashed out and approved. And then Mr. Tate's been working with the team to get this ready to bring back to the city. And here we are today, and now in 2023, looking at it. So there's been a lot of change since that last review back in 2021, but we're happy that he's here and bringing this project back to us. The ownership for the property is all these properties are owned by Riverdale Commercial Holding LLC. I do see now I have it identified in my executive summary as Ellis Orchard Business Park. That's an old nomenclature for the site. It's not that anymore. This is Crossroads Center at Riverdale is what they're going with for this project. So I apologize for that. But anyway, the general plan for the area is set as planned commercial high. This project does in fact meet that standard requirement for general plan. Going over now the review comments from staff. I don't have a lot noted on until you get to number 5, page 5 of my report, just that the design review committee will need to approve the building colorations, material, signage concepts, and landscape plan prior to going to a final approval from city council. And the number of trees, there needs to be more tree plantings in the project per city code 101412 B2E. I could talk to Mr. Tate about that offline, but I just noticed that tree count's pretty low per the code. So internal circulation isn't clearly identified. I think that this is important for us to see, and maybe for the future, so we can understand how the traffic will move around the site. Just as kind of a guidance, even if it's just a preliminary idea or concept, it'll help us better understand how the site will operate and maybe help the least police know how to anticipate movement. So if you could show that, would be great. Dedicated right-of-way isn't just, the words right-of-way aren't clearly identified where there is the city right-of-way, so if we just have better representation of that. Location of street name signs not shown, if any. I don't know if there are going to be any on the corners coming in or coming out. If there's not, then, who are we to declare to private property owners how to operate, but if there are, it'd be good to know where those are. And then under the power lines, I know I brought this up last time. I'm still just not quite seeing, either I'm missing something, if it's there.
We got their design, what was it, about 3 weeks ago, so about the time we were submitting, Rocky Mountain finally gave us
Okay,
the final
so
goal.
that will probably show up on a future iteration. Finally, okay, so we'll finally see how the power lines are relocated along 1500 and where those lines will connect into the site in the future one. So once those are there, then that will be on that plan. And then the gutter inlet boxes aren't identified as having bicycle safe grates. And then finally water rights, which I believe on this one we're good with water rights, right? Yeah. So this project actually does have water rights available for the project to move forward. Excuse me. Moving on to the Mr. Douglas review. Again, the drainage operation maintenance plan, BMPs to be recorded with plat, orifice size, location and plan detail, freeboard on detention, etc. Stormwater prevention plan comments there at some locations of where he wants the entrance and fence and devices, and then filing with compliance go, as well as the notice of intent filed with state for the drainage structure. Note the certified each detention structure size after construction and the injection well permit. Under streets, they have done a traffic impact study. I'm not sure. Well, America First did the traffic and impact study, so maybe what we ought to do is just share that with them, Jake, unless you want to do something differently, but make sure Mr. Douglas is aware of it.
Yeah, I'll make sure that America First is okay with
If they're comfortable with sharing that same, I don't know why they wouldn't be, because you did all the way to Riverdale Road. Anyway, there has been a traffic study done per the AFCU project all the way to Riverdale Road, so why reinvent the wheel where we already have that information? But yeah, he's asking for that here. He says no trees are allowed in city-owned park strips. I didn't see any. Maybe he's misunderstanding where the park strip is versus where the trees are located. I didn't see it, so again, I think that you're good, but it is his comment. Some comments about water. Irrigation controllers need to be smart controllers, to note that. Clarify water connections and abandoned lines on 1500. Update water usage peak demands, including landscaping and building. Provide what water shares will be used to meet water requirements. Easement for PRV vault, SCADA control system. I'm not sure what that means, but maybe Mr. Tate does, relative to what he's looking for there. Provide a 10-inch valve with hand wheels in the vault. 8-inch valve on north connection to the building. Buildings F and G. 3 valves on main F and G. There's not buildings F and G anymore, is there? It's A, B, C, D, E. So maybe that's a comment that he should have removed. An old comment, huh? Yeah. 3 valves on mainline connection on 1500 west. Service lines need to be the same size as the meter to the connection to the building. Service lines or mainline PVC or poly need to be include a tracer wire. Details and designs for electric connections on vaults and include fan and PRV vault. Woo, that's a lot of comments. Sewer. Any grease traps are separated required for tenants. Update sewer flow daily and peak and include peak demand time. And then under other, same notes that we typically see. Dimension square footage each lot identified. Square footage of impervious surface for each lot identified. Response letter showing in comments that were addressed. Nothing from the police chief, nothing from the fire chief specifically. The fire marshal did have a couple comments, excuse me, referencing the fire codes and fire hydrant location. I apologize. Storm must be coming in.
You're fine. It is.
Got me worked up. Verify fire flows meet code requirements. Hydrants to meet their max. Location FDC needs to be discussed. Fire flow concerns for 2 hours. Max allowed distance from any point on the street or road frontage to hydrant is 225 feet, and turning radius to be verified by their city engineer. So those are his comments. Gal, sorry. Under the city engineer, there's just 2 minor site plan improvement drawing comments there. I guess there was a note for Redwood Road needs to be changed to Riverdale Road and the month
I
and year
noticed that.
changing. So there you go. Stormwater, quite a few engineering comments there. I'm sure the majority, if not all of them, either mirror Mr. Douglas's comments or addendums to Mr. Douglas's comments. I won't read each and every one of them because they are engineering in nature, but I'm sure Mr. Tate can identify what they're requiring. Sanitary sewer, what sanitary sewer flows are going to be generated from the development, how it will impact sanitary sewer systems. The sanitary sewer system may need to be upsized for additional flows. And then he notes the sanitary sewer on sheet C33 as it connects to the existing line. The elevation has a little reverse grade. Under culinary water, again, comments regarding the PRV, some water line changes, some T's. Swing check valve connection between the two 10-inch water lines need to show the flow direction. Again, a lot of engineer speak, for lack of a better way to say it. But again, Mr. Tate, I'm sure can address and understand what they're calling out there and the issues there. With that, that's all the comments from them. I will note I did receive engineer's cost estimate from the developer proposal group, and they're estimating about a grand total of $826,102.90 in case, or 90 cents in case you're wondering. Mr. Freeman noted in his review that they received it, found the quantities for the public improvements along 1500 West Street to be acceptable. He does say a fault comment. There is concern for public water systems improvements that are not within public right-of-way and believe they should be part of the cost estimate. The public water system impacted is Weaver Basin Water Conservancy District water line is being replaced, rerouted. Weaver Basin's water meter vault is being brought to current standards. Riverdale City's water connection and PRV vault are also brought to current standards. All three items occurring due to the development. We believe that they should be part of the cost estimate. I provided this comment to Mr. Tate. He's aware of it. He has talked to our city engineer about it, and it sounds like they will be able to update the engineer's cost estimate to cover expenses associated with that. But I want to make sure, or that's not in the packet, you as a planning commission were aware of that. You'll see thereafter in the packet the application, designs and drawings of what the buildings are intended to look like and how they'll function architecturally, and the color renderings to go with that, and then the drawings that are found thereafter. And with that, I would defer to the planning commissions for any comments or questions you have for either for me and or the engineering group. One thing I will note, the very last page, and there may be another page in there, but the very last page is a photometric. It is correct, absent there's two buildings on the west that are no longer part of this building. They're old buildings F and G that are no longer part of this project. So, but obviously buildings A through E are still similar to what's being proposed at this time. So with that, I would defer to the planning commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We would invite representatives from Riverdale Commercial Holdings LLC to come forward. And if you'd, again, identify
Thank you.
yourself and
Yep.
where you're from.
Jake Tate, Anderson Wallen Associates, 2010 North Redwood Road.
Thank you.
And that's probably how Redwood Road snuck in there because we put it on a lot of our stuff. So
I figured
sorry about
somebody
that.
was up late. That was the last item of the day.
That's probably true, actually. Yeah, we reviewed all the comments. We don't see anything that's we can't achieve. I think we're getting really close to having this project buttoned up. A lot of those technical comments were on we're replacing the city's water vault up there, the connection to Weaver Basin's main line, and that vault's probably the size of this room, half the size of this room. It's massive. So it's kind of, most of the comments are related to the little tiny details of that massive vault that we're going to have two 10-inch water mains go through. So that's why there's a lot of technical comments on that. It is a very detailed design that we've been working through with Weaver Basin, and we actually got comments back from Weaver Basin today, so that's great. And took a little while, but we're happy to be at the home stretch with them as well. So I didn't see anything that that we couldn't accommodate. I think we're there. So if you have any specific questions, we're happy to address those. And yeah,
Thank you.
happy to be here.
Commissioners, any questions?
Do you already have tenants that are speculated or?
Yeah, there's people looking, but
You do have a brokerage team though, right? Mr. Enlow and his team. Yeah. So there is an active brokerage team working on the site already.
So it would be occupied.
Right.
yeah, that's the intent.
Once you have approval, when do you anticipate?
The biggest driver will be Rocky Mountain Power and Weber Basin's water main, because Rocky Mountain's lines go over one set of buildings and the water main goes under the other set of buildings. And so we can't put our cranes up under the overhead lines, and we can't touch the water line during the peak April 15th to October 15th when the irrigation season's on. So we're hoping to get as soon as we can. If we had a permit today, we'd start today. So we're looking to do whatever we can. We're looking into options of potentially building the building the main water buildings around the water line and leaving out a little piece of the footings where the water is, and so we can get most of the stuff around it done and start putting up walls. And then after October 15th, just hook the line on either end and go from there. So we are looking into options, but we're ready to go.
Is the plan to start with one building and then move on from there as they're occupied? Is that
Yeah,
what the plan
mostly.
is?
I think the northern two would be the first two to go, just because of location. But as soon as the Rocky Mountain power lines,
That's A and B, right?
yes, and as soon as those Rocky Mountain power lines are relocated, which I think they're saying, did they say September?
Start in September.
Yeah. So as soon as those are out of the way, we'd roll right into the other three buildings.
Rocky Mountain Power said September.
Yeah, we started this over a year and a half ago. So
Again, that's the other delay, honestly. That's why you haven't seen it yet, is they were kind of stuck waiting for Rocky Mountain Power to just give them definitive information on when they might help the project move forward. So you can imagine the stall they've been stuck in, both waiting for these two major groups to identify when they're willing to let them move forward on the site. So that's part of the timing play too. It is kind of abnormal to not see a project come forward for a year and change, but there's been a lot of things over the last year to get to this point.
yeah.
Dealing with those types of things can be frustrating.
Well, and this,
Companies.
yeah, trying to find anything right now has been difficult with supply, but it's starting to catch up. Supplies.
Now, obviously, you could have one tenant that occupies an entire building. How many maximum tenants could be in one building?
So right now they're being designed for 4 per building. The spaces are equally divided into 4. However, those can be mixed and matched as needed. There's a chance they could go smaller, but right now they're being planned with 4 main entrances off of the front facade.
Okay. Now, I know that the Utah Power's or Rocky Mountain or whoever they are anymore, those transmission lines cross Riverdale Road and they're right on the former Gibby property. So, but they're right in the middle. Are you going to be using those same
No.
towers, or what's your plan
The
there?
ones
as
on
far as-
Gibby's are going to remain, but basically up north of the power station, they're going to consolidate to a single pole right north of the power station and head directly east across 1500, and then they're going to follow the east side of 1500 all the way to Maverick. And then they're going to go across Maverick's north property line, and from there they're going to split back into the 2 on Gibby's property. So
Okay.
it'll be,
So it will totally avoid,
yes.
even though they've got that easement through there. Or that,
That'll go away, and we've given them a new easement, and we've worked with Maverick, so they're on board too. They know what's coming, and
that was the reason I made that comment earlier in the packet about the power line routing, because clearly that's one of the things that the RDA and the CDA have tried to work with the development group on the site is how best to do that, how to accommodate the payment for that, how to align it the right way so it doesn't clip through the middle of the property. That was one of the biggest reasons the RDA even was conceptualized, is to get that power corridor out of the middle of this property. And so,
Right.
yeah, they've found a route that works along 1500 to consolidate it, tighten it up, get all the lines where they need to be so they're out of the way, and then work itself back to where that bank of power lines then crosses over Riverdale Road. It rejoins it there, and then it goes back the way it normally is. So you're gonna see a consolidation and a realignment that'll kind of almost square around the property and then rejoin where it was again. So this is not a minor undertaking by any means. This is very large.
Yeah, just to move the lines, right? Yeah.
yep. But it does free up the property, and it'll be pretty clean once it's all done. So
I did have one question to that detention basin along the east side, the brow of the hill. How deep is that detention basin? Do you know?
that one's only 2 to 3 feet. It's a shallow, and it's only there to be. There's an underground basin next to it that will take a majority of the water, and it's just a way. It's so much cheaper to put it on the surface. So we had that. There's probably 30 feet there at the top of the hill that we weren't using. So we instead of putting all that underground and the expense of going underground, we just provide a little pond, and as it fills up the underground, it'll just start filling up the surface pond, and then it'll all drain together. So
Okay, but those shouldn't present any issues as far as because it's close to the edge of the hill.
Yeah, there's been no comment from our engineer or Sean of concern. And again, where it's not going to be very deep, the pressure on the slope is really not going to be very large, if any, even with water in it, the way it's been designed. I can't see it. I know your concern is the slope somehow breaks and that water somehow goes over the edge, but the volumes that we're talking about aren't going to have enough pressure and depth to.
Yeah, it's only
Burden on
intended to
it.
get a couple feet deep.
Is the underground, is that pretty large?
It's about 40,000 cubic feet in that area, so it's pretty big, but for that size of a property, it's not too bad.
There is one other feature that is kind of unique that I think the Planning Commission just might want to be aware of that is a good thing. They are looking at doing a shared advertising structure along Interstate 84, kind of in the. It's kind of ironic. It came to my mind when you brought up that detention basin, because it's kind of in that lower corner, and it's actually, per the development agreement, designed to be 3-sided and to be large enough to be visible from 84 and Riverdale Road. Even though it'll be quite a ways away and on a slope, it's going to be pretty large, so it can be visible, and high, so it can be visible as far as users in there. We're also talking as an RDA about ways to utilize a property the RDA has picked up across from Riverdale Road for a master signage site for this property, as well as multiple other properties in that area that would be shared, almost like a district fill sign, so that it's very visible from Riverdale Road to advertise each and everybody that's deep inside of this area as a draw. And there's even discussion along there's a redevelopment agency property along I-15 as a third site for, again, a shared commercial center site. So what I'm trying to note is that's how intense this project area is. Not just this property, but all the properties working together synergistically and advertising correctly for each and every user, so that we can maximize the value of the site. I think, to the point that the I-84 sign may actually be an electronic messaging sign, where they may need more tenant advertisement than sales will provide for the size they need. And we may explore it at the other sites, electronic messaging as well, at I-15 and Riverdale Road. We haven't quite identified it, but we haven't been in discussions with Mr. Tate and Riverdale Commercial Holdings over the last year about ideas to really advertise and maximize that awareness of this site and all the businesses
Is
there.
that going to be up on the hill?
So the one will be kind of up on the hill by that detention basin, off of 84. I can't remember the exact location, but it's kind of up in that upper corner area, so you can see it from Riverdale Road or 84. The I-15 one will be somewhere along the RDA property, just north of the existing Brookhaven commercial building, somewhere in that strip of land there. And then, like I said, on the hard corner across from Maverick, there's intent. The tricky one is the Maverick corner, because we have to set it such that it doesn't block visibility of the Reagan billboard sign, or we can get sued. So that one's going to be a little bit tricky one, but the other two, we've had agreement discussions about.
So they're both on higher elevations anyway.
Yeah. And the reason I bring it up is the signs are well beyond, the 84 sign is going to be designed well beyond the scope and the size that the code otherwise would allow by development agreement. So just be aware of that. We may have to do similarly some kind of a agreement, or maybe even a code update for a specialized district. I might have to bring back a code update. We'll see how we address the I-15 sign and the Riverdale Road sign at a future date, but that's the intent.
Right.
Off the record, can you keep a launch pad there at that detention basin for the old Tarzan swing I used as a kid?
We won't take that down. We're not touching any of those trees. That's awesome.
Yeah, we used to swing out over the off ramp.
Wow.
It's exciting things, and I got some good news on the I-15 stuff coming too this recently, so it sounds like a lot of good stuff's happened up here.
I'm glad you said that. I won't say anything more. Just know that there is a project on the RDA property also being developed, and Mr. Tate's involved. But that's all I dare say at this point. It's
good news.
We'll leave it at that, right?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
We're ready for that. That we submit to the, or that we forward to the city council a positive recommendation once all staff and engineering concerns are taken care of, that we recommend approval of the proposed final site plan with any requested modifications, tabling the matter, and do so in a positive way.
Do you want to identify the location for this?
Yes, it is if I find the right one.
4850.
4850.
For the Riverdale Commercial Holdings LLC at 4850 South, 1500 West in Riverdale.
Second.
Any discussion? Michelle, would you poll the commissioners, please?
Commissioner Sparks?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes?
Commissioner Nolan?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Okay, again, it's been unanimous. Thank you. All right, proceed to item F, comments. Do we have any comments from the Planning Commission before we close the meeting?
I just want to say on record how thankful I am for our snowplow drivers and all the guys that have worked so hard all winter on our roads and just done so much.
Been a busy year, as Mr. Douglas and his team will attest. We'll just say that.
And an expensive year,
Yep.
probably, too.
It's been challenging. A lot of late nights and long hours, we'll just say that. For
Yeah, they
sure.
work all night so we can, and it's a thankless job. So I just want to say thanks.
The only thing that I'll add real quick, unless the commissioners have anything else, just that, as Mr. Tate noted, we do have some new proposals coming forward that are going to be site plan driven. Well, that one in particular on the RDA property has some great opportunities for the city. So I expect that we would see that probably within the month is what I'm thinking it feels like on that one. So you'll finally know what the whole big mystery is about the RDA property after all this time. And then the legislative update, if we have a light agenda next time, I'll bring that forward and feel free to come with questions and stuff too. I'll clearly try to provide, I will provide at least the material in advance. I have it already from the budget session last week. But there's a lot there, so it might be worth you looking into some of these bills before the meeting so that you can kind of ask questions or try to refine things that maybe aren't as clear. I've been participating in all the legislative policy committee meetings with the Utah League of Cities and Towns and been in those for week after week after week for 6 weeks. It's very tiring and overwhelming, but here we are. So hopefully what I'm trying to get at is I'll be able to share all the information that I absorbed from those meetings and where we're at and be able to answer any of your questions as best I can. So just come ready for that.
Just one quick question
Yeah.
about that. Is it the Utah League of Cities and Towns that's driving these changes?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. In fact, Mr. Brooks at the budget session last week with council stated that he felt like this year the league was way more defensive and challenging in protecting cities' interests and rights as much as they could, whereas in years past it hasn't felt as much that way.
Well, that's good.
So at least there's that. You should, again, we'll get into it more, but there were some things that were being proposed that were very, very, man, it would have been a very different, really bad situation and not maybe a tough situation that we're facing now. Let's put it that way. So there is that, if you want to call that a silver lining. But I will say this is my last comment about it now. It's very clear that the legislature is doing whatever it will take to wrest control away from cities as much as they feel they appropriately can. And it's not just in Utah, it's nationwide. A lot of states, some of the worst are like Florida and California and Arizona, where they've completely wrested away land use controls from cities. And cities have just become checkbox agencies on land use. So that's something to think about. One other comment about budget session last week. we did spend a good about 4 hours with the council and looking at budgeting priorities and talking about multiple things. So if you're curious how that went, feel free to go ahead and talk to some of the council members, get a feel for it, and or I think Michelle will have minutes at some later date. So if you're curious to know what that looks like, you could always request minutes from her when they're done. So if you're curious, but it would be wise as a planning commission just to kind of have a feel, because that's where a lot of priorities of the city show up, is in budgeting discussions. So
Was that recorded on YouTube?
it was
or-
recorded, but it wasn't a live recording like a YouTube, because it was held at the community center.
Oh, okay.
That's why I said minutes. If you want to read just a quick condensed version, that'd be a good way to do it. It's still probably, I didn't say it's still probably a couple, in fair warning, it's still probably a couple pages to Michelle's credit. That's what I was
okay.
going to say. So
Will that be something that's posted, or do we just have to ask you to get it?
In the next packet for the city council.
Okay, it'll be in the packet for the city council for the upcoming, so next week?
Friday.
This Friday, it'll be in it.
Okay.
yeah. So
And if you want, I can send that packet to you guys too.
Yeah, I'd love it.
That'd be great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
So there you go. So there's a plug, so you know that there was quite a bit discussed. And with that, that's all I have.
All right,
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Second?
second. All in favor?
Yes.
All right, yes.
I think everybody seconded.